Divorced men of Reddit. What moment with your former wife made me think, yup, I'm asking this girl to divorce me? Story 1. Besides the narcissism, random violence, and violent outbursts, it was her strange punishments. Her last one doomed her. My crime? I forgot milk on the way home from work, so she didn't talk to me. Not one word for a week. Pure bliss for a week. When she asked if I was ready to apologize, I handed her the divorce papers. Why? Because you rob me of solitude but provide me with no companionship. Story 2. When she presented a picture of our 4-year-old daughter and me laying next to each other on the couch watching Blue's Clues to our marriage counselor as evidence of my inappropriate conduct around our kids. Thank God he saw right through that bullshit immediately and told her to knock it off. Edit. There is no Joe. Not my Steve. Edit 2. Many asked, so here's the deal. We've been divorced almost 5 years now. The process wasn't fair, but that wasn't really my ex's fault. No allegations of child abuse or misconduct were brought up against me during the proceedings, so that was good. They wouldn't have flown for a minute in court anyway. Our kids are older now and every day are becoming better equipped to see and understand the difference between what's reasonable and right and what's simply just batshit insane. And it's not working out all that well for their mother, who hasn't changed her MO much if at all since we parted ways. So it goes. I'm happily remarried now to a woman with kids of her own. Kids who were friends and schoolmates of my kids before she and I even got to know each other. They're all our kids now. Life is good. No more shenanigans. Story 3. When the cops showed up and arrested me while I was washing dishes. Found out after being taken to the station that she had claimed that I had been beating on her and my 5-year-old son. Was acquitted in court a month or so later. The situation was so messed up that the cops actually testified on my behalf. Story 4. I was working on a mother-daughter scrapbook as a Christmas present for her. Was going through her Google Photos account looking for pics of them together. Came across a selfie she took with some dude laying on her. Confirmed her second affair. Knew it was over the moment I saw it. That has fucked me up pretty good. Story 5. When I came to the sad realization that we were just good roommates and had been like that for years. We have been divorced for almost 10 years and she is one of my favorite people in the world. We just weren't supposed to be married. Story 6. When she informed me she was cheating on me and leaving me for that guy. That guy was engaged. Not to her. Oddly enough, he did not break off his engagement. Edit. Wow. Thought this thread was dead when I commented. I'd like to add this was 6 months into our marriage. Together for 3 years. But that last 6 months, she couldn't keep it together. Story 7. Her. I can't live in this house anymore. It's not in a major city. Me. We're less than an hour away from one. Also, I inherited this house. It cost me nothing but upkeep. Also, I pay every bill. You work 6 hours a week and have 1 class. Where do you get off demanding anything? Her. Buy me a new house or we're done. Me. Get thee out of my house. Story 8. 15 years in, and I find texts on her phone. Completely blindsided. No clue she had it in her to cheat. Told me it was just texting. Begged for forgiveness. I caved. A month later, checked the phone bill to find that it never stopped. Confronted her again. Cue more begging and more denial on my part that she would let the life we had built go down in flames. This went on for a few months. So many promises. One night, I caught her on the phone when she thought I had left. Suddenly, it's not just texts. Sometimes it was phone calls, too. Just a friend she could talk to that she let things go too far with. Promised to break all contact. Swore it was never physical. Then I found emails. She detailed things that made me sick to read, but also included descriptions of his house. She broke finally, but swore it was all just in the line of duty. That's how she met, you see. Visiting nurse service, and this guy was a client. Promised she was done. Loved me, you see. No chance she was going to let 15 years go like that. I wasn't buying it anymore, though. She announced she was going out one night with a work friend. Promised they were only going to the bar, then she'd be home. Maybe late, but not too late. She had taken over her own phone account by then, but wasn't bright enough to understand that Google Latitude was still showing me where she was, and I wasn't about to show my hand. She kissed me goodbye and beelined right for his house, and was there until the wee hours of the morning. Once I knew where she had headed, I called her dad and my best friend to keep me from doing anything dumb. I will love them both forever for keeping me calm while my world went fucking insane all around me. My father-in-law offered to stay with the kids and wait for her to get home. Around 3 a.m. while couch surfing my buddy's place, she sent me a nasty text asking where I thought I was. I texted her a screenshot of her little GPS dot at her boyfriend's and let her know I'd be sending her some paperwork soon. Story 9. Finding her. On Christmas Eve, still sexting a coworker whom she claimed she was no longer in contact with, having been busted sexting him previously, also. I cleared out of there like a blackjack dealer. Story 10. Preface. We were doing a trial separation. She moved into the spare bedroom of our apartment. Divorce had been thrown around, but we still spent time together and slept together. I wasn't seriously considering divorce, but rather counseling, etc. Up until the day I came home from work at the same time I came home every day, and she was in her room being fucked by some random guy she met on Tinder. She had not told him she was married. I kicked him out of the apartment and made it clear to her I would be moving out as soon as possible. Edit. Must add that she expressed interest in counseling as well, and that we discussed ground rules for the separation, one of which was, do not other people. Edit 2. Thanks for all the love. For those asking, I moved out because I couldn't afford the apartment on my own. I didn't kick the guys, but I did tell him while punching the door that he had 3 minutes to get out of my apartment. I said if he wasn't out in 3 minutes, I was going to break down the door, and it wouldn't be to shake hands. Proud of that line from Enraged Me. Usually I'm not very articulate when angry. He was out in a little over 2 minutes. Story 11. I used to love to do chores for her because she loved being taken care of. When she stopped noticing, it started hurting. Then one day, I made a bench for our entryway out of barnwood. Took about 40 hours of work. She walked in the house after work that day and sat her purse on it and proceeded to start the fight where she told me that she was mad she got married to me. She stormed out of the house grabbing her purse. Never noticed the bench was there. I knew then, but I think she already knew. Story 12. I found out she cheated on me, and upon me confronting her to discuss it, she manipulated me into thinking she was suicidal. Then she admitted the manipulation. Done. She may have once been a nice person, that's all gone now. Edit. Forgot to mention I found out because she had left her FB open with a conversation about her pregnancy scares to a friend. We hadn't had in a bit more than a month. Story 13. My wife was around less and less. Had to be free to live her life, go out with her friends. More often than not, she would call me to pick our daughter up from daycare after promising to pick her up and have some girl time. Just tell her I'm working late or not feeling well. She always had something better to do, and the kids were old enough to know better. I went to pick our daughter up one day. When they called her name, she came running over until she saw it wasn't Mom. Again, slumped her shoulders and slowly walked over to ask, what's her excuse this time? That was the breaking point. Told her to get out, even helped pay her security deposit to get her out. Story 14. When I found the letter between her and my friend about their affair and how she couldn't wait to be away from me so they could be together. Yup, I knew then that it was time to get that divorce. Story 15. When my stepdaughter became a teenager, my ex ramped up the nutso. She had always been an impatient, angry screamer of a parent. But as my stepdaughter became a young woman, my ex just went crazy with envy or something. I know lots of moms have a hard time with teenage daughters, but their base-level patience is so much better than my ex's was. Threats of cutting hair in middle of night while daughter slept, pulling hair, slapping face, ridiculing in front of her friends, swinging something that missed and put a hole in the wall. I was out with the kids. Story 16. She required a much more varied selection of dicks than I was able to provide, so she went out and acquired them herself while I was stationed overseas in the Air Force. Story 17. We met and spent the first 7 years of our married life on the West Coast, then moved east. 5 years later, I took a job back on the West Coast, but it was the middle of the school year, so I went out ahead and lived on my own until everyone could join me. Things hadn't been very good between us for a while, but I hadn't articulated it to her, or even myself, beyond vague feelings of dissatisfaction. One weekend, out there on my own, I decided to take a day and drive to one of my favorite towns, a town in which I had lived long before I knew her, a town we had visited often while married. It was late afternoon, was about to head back to my hotel, when I realized that I could visit a particular beach that had special meaning to me from my earlier life there. I stopped at a convenience store, grabbed a grolsch like I used to drink on that beach, and drove out there. Hiked out to a specific spot I remembered, sat down, popped the beer, and looked out over the ocean. And it hit me that I hadn't done that in over 20 years. Whenever we'd visit the area, I'd suggest stopping at the beach, but she wasn't interested and would always veto the idea. I'm sure reading this it seems like the tiniest thing, but it was the catalyst for me realizing just how completely dissatisfied I was with our relationship. I think from the time I sat down, I knew it was over within maybe 10 minutes. Just sitting there, sipping my beer, looking at the ocean. Edit, RIP inbox, and my first gold. Thanks, Redditors. I seriously thought this would be one of those, I'm late to the thread, so no one will read, it posts. Thank you for all the incredibly kind words. Grolsch is indeed a Dutch beer. It can be had in distinctive green bottles with hinged, resealable ceramic caps. I chose it because when I had lived in that place before and had headed out to that specific beach with friends, I'd always bring Grolsch. Story 18. I left for work at 6 a.m. and forgot to unplug the toaster. When I arrived home at 6 p.m., I was given the everything you've ever done to me off speech, just for leaving the toaster plugged in. I asked her what she did all day that prevented her from unplugging it herself. Another I'm in speech. I said something to the effect of quit acting like your fucking mother. She threw the cat at me. A cat. She threw a fucking cat at me. Edit. Words and such, edit. Scuba Steve went on to live with me after the official separation and divorce. Story 19. There were many reasons, but this was the final straw. My grandmother was on her deathbed. My ex took this time to throw a childish fit because I ordered food that she didn't like. I realized at that point how completely miserable I was and how fucking short life is. So we divorced. She took all my money and my kids. Child supportal. I've still never been happier, and every time I have to interact with her, it blows my mind that we made it 9 years. I guess when we were together, I was so trained to comply and overlook. I now see what an absolute toxic bully she was. Story 20. For the first one, I was working late and the daycare calls and asked if I'm picking up my kids. Left work to go get them. When I got home, she was gone. Didn't hear anything from her for 2 weeks. For the second one, the third time I bailed the house out of foreclosure because she wouldn't pay the bills, even though there was money in the accounts to cover it. I closed the account, handed her cash for the mortgage, packed a bag my kids, and left. Story 21. After reading the "What moment did you know you would marry your wife" thread, what a beautiful world full of love we live in. After reading this thread, oh right, the things some people can do to the ones they are supposed to love. Story 22. The day she didn't take off work to help me go through a dumpster. I had accidentally thrown my keys in the trash while cleaning out my car. Edit. Didn't even return my call. Story 23. When I, as the only earner in the house, was denied buying a new pair of work boots in December because she needed the money to buy vaccines for the puppies. She bred dogs as a hobby. I was a framing carpenter in Ohio. My current work boots were toast holes in both, no soles. I needed them. Her puppy vaccine story was bullshit. Her hobby was dogs, but she was a pro at popping pills. That's what she needed the money for. I was done with her by March. Story 24. During the last year and a half of our marriage, she became extremely psychologically abusive. She was a narcissist, controlled my every move, would isolate me, refused physical contact. I was just an extension to her life, was not allowed to talk to any female, was not allowed to hang out with any friends, or she would ignore me for up to 5 days at a time, double standards everywhere, verbal abuse, and the list can continue, but it hurts to think about. The last straw for me was when she threatened to kill me because I came home from work late, even though she knew I would be home late. It was just a little too late for her, and she also threatened to hit me the same day. This was the second time this happened, and I talked with several people at work about it, and they suggested that I run. I had texts of the threats on my phone and contacted a lawyer that same week. She agreed to sign since I told her I would take severe legal action if she didn't. Thankfully, no children, and it was a clean divorce, and I'm happily divorced. Story 25. When she falsely told our marriage counselor that I punched her. The next week, she denied saying it and accused our counselor of lying. He gave me a, "You should leave this relationship" look. I took that look as permission from a professional that I definitely wasn't making the wrong decision. Got divorced and never looked back. I legitimately feared for my safety towards the end. Not that she would hurt me, but that she would make a false accusation to the cops or a crazy friend. Edit. Shortened the story. Story 26. She let me know she was pregnant and wanted my permission to tell all her girlfriends during a girls' night out. Since I knew there was no possible way it was my child, she was also unknowingly admitting to having an affair. I can math, and she can't. It was with her boss. Lawyered up the next day, and he ate her alive in court. I got primary custody of our child we already had, and child support, and a sheriff's notice that she had to vacate my home in 30 days. I never knew she could be that stupid. Story 27. Not me, but one of my best friends got his permission to post. He got a pretty substantial year-end bonus from work. He decided to use most of it for his wife's Christmas gift and pay off her remaining student loans, $14,700, and the remaining portion to buy a new computer chair for when he gamed, $300. Christmas morning, he was nice enough to let me stay at his place when I traveled for work as he lived 20 minutes from the airport. We all woke up and had breakfast. His family and her parents came over and we started exchanging gifts. Besides paying off her loans, he had gotten her a few times items. She opened the card saying her loans were paid off. She just sat there for a minute. After the silence, and assuming she was kinda in shock, she asked, "Did you seriously not get me anything else? I bought you that stupid keyboard, the wrong one BTW, and you only got me a few things?" At that point, his brother-in-law and myself decided to go hang out in another room for a while. They ended up getting into a huge fight. A day later, when he was dropping me off at the airport, he told me that he was going to visit a lawyer and get a divorce. Story 28. I think I'm in the process of realizing it's time to call it a day. I love her, but we seem to have vastly different ideas on the best way to live, i.e. money, lifestyles. And it's thoroughly disheartening being the one trying to make an effort all the time. Shit sucks. Story 29. When she asked me to take the kids on some errands, has kept me celibate for months, saying she is asexual now, and once I leave invite some guy over to tongue lash her for 45 minutes and then drop a load inside her in the bedroom without a condom. All on the day before Father's Day. Thanks, Amy. Not divorced yet. This happened last week. Her life is in such shambles I am not even mad. Story 30. She had lost her job. Again, after quitting a decent one because she didn't get along with her boss. Anyways, a few months go by and I'm doing everything. Cooking, laundry, dishes, yard work, etc. I'd ask the kids, what does mom do all day? And they said she plays on the computer all day. So the final straw came when I came home from work and had to wash dishes so I could make dinner. Dinner is made, so I tell family it's ready. She comes to get a plate and serves herself first instead of our youngest child who was 4 at the time and couldn't serve himself. As I watched this unfold, it dawned on me. If I'm going to do all the work, I might as well do it by myself or find a partner to share the load with because she clearly didn't want to be on my team. Edit. To those mentioning depression. Yes, she was, and maybe still is. She was on meds for it, and we went to counseling after the birth of one of our kids, and she had postpartum depression. At this time, she stepped out on our marriage with at least 3 guys. I finally got proof with hidden caller ID and a voice-activated tape recorder hidden under our bed. Yep, gotta hear them having. Long story, but we stayed together. IDK if the counseling helped or not. I also need to add that she was never good with money. Blew a small inheritance in record fashion. She would give me money for joint bills and I was handing it back over so she could put gas in her car or she had a bill of hers due. One year we got a nice tax refund and she promptly tells me she owes her stepdad $2,000. Zero. WTF? Still stayed. In short, my earlier response was to OP's question, and the edit is some background so you know that this was something that had been building for years. Story 31. For my stepdad. When he found her calculations about how much she would get in child support and alimony in a divorce. She wasn't home at the time. He had the locks changed on his doors first thing, then shut her out of their shared accounts. Story 32. After all the arguments, yelling at each other and talking in cross purposes, we were looking at each other and she says to me, I know that you are going to divorce me because of this, but I really hate you. It was the first time in a long time that I completely understood her and what she was trying to express to me. My daughter was 3 at the time and over the years she said she wanted me back, but I would say, all you have to do is apologize for what you said. She never would. That's how I knew she didn't love me. Story 33. Wasn't married, but about 1 month away from marrying. We worked together at the same job for about a year, but she was first shift and I was second. We both had weekends off so we could and did things on the weekend. We had got everything paid for and were set. One weekend, actually on my birthday, I went to get a haircut before we went out for the night. I weirdly noticed this one car in the parking lot of our apartments. Didn't think too much as there was a ton of cars that would come and go. She had gone up to a casino with her mom the previous night and stayed overnight. That wasn't uncommon as they were both huge gamblers. I got back and did some cleaning and she walked in. She looked at me and threw her ring on the table and said, "We need to talk. I think I like Joe more now and decided I want to be with him. I don't need the ring and you can cancel the wedding." It all clicked. That car I seen was Joe's. She didn't go up to the casino with her mom but with Joe instead. Even more fucked up is I called her mom to see how close they were to home and she covered for her daughter. I then come to find out her friend Joe was a ex-lover who also broke up her last engagement. He was always trying to befriend me too and act like we were best friends. I have never felt less of a man, more ashamed and hurt than when this happened. I sacrificed a lot for her. I was there doing anything and everything for her and her family when her dad very slowly passed away. And she ends up treating me like a pet she could get rid of when she got bored. I still can't remember a few months of time after that happened. I was in a bad place. Edit. I just realized I never finished this up. It took a while to get my head straight. My best friend of over 20 years, to me a brother and family, helped me out so much. He made sure I was going to be okay and took me out to blow off steam. We took an awesome trip to some fun spots with a few other people. I owe him so much for the help. My family really helped too. I ended up meeting my fiancé now about 6 months after I had that happen. We have been together for over 5 years and we will be celebrating our first daughter's birthday on June 29th. Amazing what has happened since then. My one advice is, don't ever give up or think you are worthless. You are worth everything to somebody out there no matter what. I can say I am almost embarrassed by how I reacted back then, lol. Edit again. I never expected this to get this much attention. Thank you everybody for the kind words. And yes, my ex and I were together for about 4 years. I will say after I met my new fiancé now, About a month into dating, I got a new job and got to say good riddance to the last of my ex. One of the greatest things ever. The oddest thing, too, was my best friend who stuck with me actually had his dad pass away my last week at work. My last day, I had told them I needed to leave at 3 p.m. to go help my best and his family with last-minute wake and funeral stuff. They told I can't leave, and they won't let me. After how my ex got everybody there to somehow feel really bad for her about leaving me, and I got left with people telling me how they feel bad for her, I just dropped my on the ground and left. I remember the supervisor saying you are going to get into lots of trouble, and I looked at her dead in the eyes and go, "What? Am I going to get fired?" And just started laughing on my way out. Story 34. I worked, she played. She woke me up in the middle of the night to grab the extra blanket off the bed. I expected to find her disgruntled on the couch alone the next morning. I found her in the guest bed with another woman, both naked. No forewarnings or clue-ins, just despondent betrayal. I woke her for answers and got a whole lot of mumbles. Decided to split for space. That weekend, we both ended up at the same bar on the same dance floor. I thought she'd followed me there to make amends. She'd brought the same girl and completely ignored me when I called out to her. When I walked up to her, she pretended I was a stranger. I told her I'm not going to play any games and didn't know what was going on. She said she didn't want to be married. I gave her the ring back and went to tell my friends goodbye that night. I didn't want to tell them why. I felt so embarrassed. She saw me talking to my friends and decided to make out in front of us with her new woman directly on the dance floor, 8 feet away from where I stood while everyone stared. Looking back now, I realized she probably was scared to come out. I can give her credit for that. But she was an awful person for the way she did it and for never having the courage to say to my face whatever she was feeling. I thought we were best friends. I thought we were going to be together forever. She asked me to marry her. Now I'm just grateful for not being with a liar and a coward. I've made a fresh start, sold everything, traded my entire wardrobe and style to feel like I'm in a new life. Sure, I've lost more money than I ever thought imaginable. And the dog. I just keep optimistic that I'll find someone who deserves my time. I don't focus on the past, and I have faith in God and the future. Whoever I marry next will be grateful for a man like me and loyal. But until then, I'm going to enjoy the single life again and just play. Story 35. When, after being in Afghanistan for 8 months, May 02 she was missing, had my car, finding 2 random women with kids and pets living in the apartment I paid for, the electricity cut off, no money in my bank account, a pay advance authorized by my commander, and a friend telling me to go easy on her because she was 5 months pregnant with his kid. Oh, and he had had heart surgery to remove some kind of cysts from his heart just before I left. He was 23, had a pacemaker, and basically half a heart. If I scared him, he could die. I'd say that was the moment. Story 36. Not divorced yet. Haven't fully decided it's time, but I think it's close. And my straw was when, during one of her every 3-month epic meltdowns, she said, "I fantasize about you just finding another girl and sleeping with her so I'll know it's over. It would be the worst thing you could ever do to me." Story 37. She started working at a job with people that were closer to her age, 25-30, instead of a job where her co-workers were in their late 40s, early 50s. She wanted to go out and hang out with them rather than come home and be with her family. Myself and our at the time 2-year-old daughter, and a godforsaken cat that she just had to have. There were a lot of other little things that added up over time, mainly her desire to drink and drive, without our daughter in the car thankfully, and 4 days a week of not coming home until 2 or 3 in the morning and not telling a soul where she was or what she was doing. After a month of that, she said she wanted a divorce. I fought it with everything I had for 3 months. Decided to go to counseling, where the counselor asked her, "Ex-wife? In your mind, in this marriage already over?" After a literal 5-minute silence, I had the answer I needed. Separated a week later and divorced a year later. We're still civil for our daughter's sake. But I will say that after the initial shock of actually going through a divorce after us both proclaiming to do whatever it takes and never getting a divorce, I will say I'm much happier now. I was able to save up and buy a house for my daughter and I, which I never would have been able to do had I stayed married. Story 38. When she admitted to cheating on me with a coworker. This was the second time. First time was with a bunch of internet strangers, albeit at separate times. You could make the case that the second time was the second dude, but I'm talking about second admittance. But I digress. At that point, it wasn't so much me asking her as it was me getting the out of Dodge. Edit. If you're out there, Michelle, I bid thee a marry you. Edit 2. A period. Edit 3. To add insult to injury, she met these internet strangers on Yahoo Messenger of all places. Yahoo fucking Messenger. Story 39. I was standing next to one of my best friends waiting for the ski lift to start up when his brand new wife leaned over and said, "Of course it's broken if their mechanic is a Mexican." The shock in his face leads me to believe that's the moment he knew they would divorce in a few months. Edit. To answer some questions. No, she was not joking. We were all frustrated waiting for the ski lift to come back on, so she was dead serious and angry at the mechanic. They got married extremely fast, just over a year, because she was extremely attractive and my friend was not thinking with his better head. As he gradually learned more about her, they broke it off around 6 months into their marriage. He is still to this day an idiot around women, which is dangerous because he is now a hedge fund manager. Story 40. Went to my grandpa's funeral, Disneyland after the service. Flights and board were paid for by my father. She was the most ungrateful, unsupportive whiny the whole weekend. I couldn't believe it. My little sister said my entire family didn't like her or her attitude and was constantly asking why she was there. That really sank in, and at that moment, I knew we were done. Don't keep her around if your family can't stand her. They probably don't like her for good reason. Story 41. My son was watching Netflix on her phone with me and her boyfriend text her. It was 12 at night and he said he missed her and couldn't wait to see her again. Typical, I know. I confronted her, and she denied and said that her friend's daughter was texting my son. My son is 3, the daughter in question was 2 and barely speaking. Yay, that was time to go. Story 42 months of no, secretly seeing someone as a friend at her night job, going to stay the night at his house over the weekend, and finally, finding her saying she loves him in an instant messenger text. Also, forgetting my effing birthday. This was less than 90 days in. Story 43. I caught my wife being unfaithful. Even though we had a very active life, we had 5 to 7 times a week. That was it. Once a cheater, always a cheater. I filed a week later. There are no second chances when it comes to infidelity in my book. It is one act that shows the most blatant disregard for your spouse. If you are going to cheat, then grow a pair and tell your spouse first. Story 44. As a woman going through a divorce right now, this thread makes me sad, but is forcing me to have some self-reflection in order to prevent it from happening again. That being said, my STBXH told me that he knew he had to leave because he just couldn't stop himself from messaging all those girls he would meet online, and he knew he was going to cheat on me physically very, very soon. That's a direct quote. We had been having at least 3 times a week. I had been initiating. The last time we slept together was the day before he left, and he asked me not to leave visible scratches on his back and said it wasn't attractive that I got so into it. So I'm guessing his reason was he found me repulsive. He never said that to me directly. Edit. I cannot take credit for introducing many of you to the acronym STBXH, so I encourage you to thank our Reddit friend Jehovah Coin with some likes for explaining it. I actually got a huge laugh out of it. Story 45. When she posted on Facebook about an argument we had, and her friends gave her advice on how to get back at me, including but not limited to poisoning me, hitting me in the face while I'm asleep, and cutting my brake lines. All of these comments were met with laughter and emojis on her part. Story 46. When I came to the realization that I was the edit. For those that are curious, I'm an emotionally detached alcoholic veteran. I don't drink anymore. Still in though. Edit. 2. Oh gold. Tips. Hat. Story 47. I was working 6 to 7 days a week, 10-12 hours a day, and she called me lazy. She's screaming in my face and telling me I was a bad father as she demolished my son's room. Goodbye. Story 48. When she decided our dog was annoying her and sold him on Craigslist, which she then used the money to buy herself a non-refundable purse, instead of making any mention of her feelings so we could come up with a solution. Story 49. Saturday before Easter of this year, she came at me with her desire to go to Germany and see friends that would pay for her round trip there and back. We got into an argument about it. I voiced my suspicion that something more was going on. We didn't speak Sunday. Then Monday rolls around and she tells me she's done. So I get home early, look around on her laptop and find chats between her and her German girlfriend. I invade her privacy because she had cheated before. She had been planning on divorcing me since November last year. So I call her at work and tell her to pack her and get out. I feel so much better not having the trust issues with her, but this whole ordeal is wreaking havoc on my 3 children. Story 50. She said these words, "You need to take a shower before you get into bed. You've been playing basketball with all those black guys." She was always mean to waitresses, flight attendants, maids, thinking she was better than them. Now black people? Fuck that. I'm out.